Well, it's time to leave this vicious political season behind and get together with the family for Thanksgiving. Crap. That's right, Thanksgiving is that time of year when we gather to inflict emotional wounds that can never be healed in people we can never avoid over issues that can't be resolved because we're related to morons. This year, Thanksgiving promises to be especially tense because those family members who voted for Hillary Clinton are going to feel particularly depressed and humiliated, especially after I get through with them. So, today, as a public service, we here at the Andrew Klavan Show would like to offer some helpful tips on how to avoid violent political arguments over Thanksgiving dinner, or if that's not possible, how to cook the bodies of your enemies so that when the police come to investigate, they ironically eat the evidence of your crimes and you get off scot-free. So, let's say your schmucky cousin Ned with the long nose hair starts ranting about how Hillary Clinton should really be president because she won the popular vote. Do not interrupt him to point out that if elections were decided by popular vote, the entire country would be governed by 3 cities whose moral wisdom is such that in biblical times they would have been reduced to sulfurous ash by the just punishment of an angry God. Also, try not to point out that schmucky cousin Ned can hardly have time to study politics when he devotes so much of his day to looking at bondage porn. No, this is the time to practice your listening skills. Just remain quiet while he speaks, nodding and smiling politely until he's finished, then pitch face forward onto the table and snore hilariously until your mom tells you to knock it off. Or, let's say your hideous Aunt Hideous with the absolutely disgusting skin tag just under her right eye starts whining that Hillary Clinton's defeat is a sign that sexism still runs rampant in America. This is not a good time to point out that Aunt Hideous's husband, Uncle Schmo, worked himself to death so that she never had to get off the sofa for 5 consecutive minutes after she roped him into marrying her with the old I'm pregnant trick. Also, do not remark that it's no wonder Uncle Schmo gave himself a heart attack by banging the neighbor's 20-year-old daughter, even though everyone told Aunt Hideous he was just over there to borrow a cup of detergent because God forbid his wife should ever do 2 seconds of housework. Instead, you can diffuse hostility by reminding your aunt that America has made great strides in its treatment of women, otherwise you'd beat the hell out of her like she deserves. Finally, always try to remember that those of your relatives who are Democrats are acting in good faith and doing the best they can to drive this country into poverty and slavery by continually casting their stupid vote for the worst possible person with the most destructive policies. As I always remind myself, be nice to your relatives. They won't be alive forever. Not if I can help it. Trigger warning, I'm Andrew Klavan, and this is The Andrew Klavan Show.
I feel hunky-dunky, life is tickety-boo. Birds are winging, also singing hunky-dunky-doo. Ship-shaped, ipsy-topsy, the world is zippity-zing. It's a wonderful day, hurrah, hooray! It makes me want to sing. Oh, hurrah, hooray! Oh, hooray, hurrah!
All right, and indeed, Thanksgiving is almost upon us, and you know what that means. That means you have to get your questions into the mailbag if you are a Daily Wire subscriber, because otherwise it's going to be a 4-day long Klavanless weekend, and you could find yourself in the middle of it wondering what's the meaning of life, and then realize you could have asked, and we would have told you, and the answer would have been 100% guaranteed correct. If you're not a subscriber, what is going on? Subscribe to the Daily Wire. Then you can watch the entire show on our website, and you can watch Ben Shapiro's show on our website, and you can hang out on our website until the police move you along, and also be part of the mailbag on both mine and Ben's show. It's free for, if you do it for a year, it's free for 30 days, and then it's a lousy $8 a month. Come on. All right, the Trumpire strikes back. You know, yesterday we talked about the insane news media attacking Donald Trump no matter what he does. It's not right. You know, it's like he gets rid of some of his staff who aren't helping. His whole transition team is in chaos. And then when it turns out they're not in chaos, well, it's all a big show, no matter what they do. So yesterday, Trump basically has a meeting, an off-the-record meeting with some of the media, some of the newspapers, and mostly the TV guys. This is the headline in the New York Post of a source describing what happened at this meeting with the media. Donald Trump's media summit was, quote, an effing firing squad. Now, I got really excited until I realized that was just a figure of speech. Here's the story. Here's the story. I mean, the guy's president, he can shoot the media, right? Donald Trump scolded media big shots. This is from the New York Post. He scolded media big shots during an off-the-record Trump Tower sit-down on Monday, sources told the Post. It was like an effing firing squad, one source said of the encounter. Trump started, this is still in quotes, Trump started with CNN chief Jeff Zucker and said, "I hate your network. Everyone at CNN is a liar and you should be ashamed." Sounds perfectly reasonable to me. The meeting was a total disaster, the source went on. The TV execs and anchors went in there thinking they would be discussing the access they would get to the Trump administration, but instead they got a Trump-style dressing down. A second source confirmed the fireworks. The meeting took place in a big boardroom, and there were about 30 or 40 people, including the big news anchors from all the networks. Trump kept saying, "We're in a room of liars, the deceitful, dishonest media who got it all wrong." He addressed everyone in the room, calling the media dishonest, deceitful liars. He called out Jeff Zucker by name and said everyone at CNN was a liar and CNN was a network of liars. Just stop me when he says something wrong, okay? Just go. Trump didn't say NBC reporter Katie Tour by name, but talked about an NBC female correspondent who got it wrong. Then he referred to a horrible network correspondent who cried when Hillary lost, who hosted a debate, which was Martha Raddatz, who was also in the room, and she did cry when Hillary lost. The stunned reporters tried to get a word in edgewise to discuss access to a Trump administration, but couldn't do it. So now, obviously, the source for the New York Post is a very pro-Trump paper, and obviously the sources for this come from the Trump camp, and they want this out there. They wanted you to know that Trump is doing this because this is why we elected him. This is what we elected him to do, to kick these people's butts. And it's a very, very it's interesting because we want him to kick the press's butts, but we also want the press to cover him, right? We don't want, it's just that the press has been so hysterical and so hysterically unfair. And then it goes on, by the way, to this morning, the New York Times whined. He canceled a meeting with them. Get this is from the New York Times, a former newspaper. It says, Trump canceled today's meeting with the New York Times with reporters and editors set to go. The president-elect announced via Twitter around 6 a.m. that he would not be taking questions from the New York Times, which were to be mostly on the record, unlike his meeting with television news executives on Monday. He sent out a tweet. "I canceled today's meeting with the failing New York Times." When the terms and conditions of the meeting were changed at the last moment, not nice. Perhaps a new meeting will be set up with the New York Times. And another tweet, "In the meantime, they continue to cover me inaccurately and with a nasty tone." Another tweet, "The failing New York Times just announced that complaints about them are at a 15-year high. I can fully understand that, but why announce it?" he says. So this now there's the New York Times commenting on this. The just announced tweet appears to be a reference to the Times public editor, an independent ombudsman, who did indeed say a surge of letters to the editor since the election rivals the one that followed the attacks of September 11th. Online comment sections and calls to the public editor are similarly swelling. Some commenters are complaining of overly harsh treatment of Mr. Trump, but many others are angry that the Times was too sanguine about Hillary Clinton's victory prospects. Those are both the same complaint, though. Those are both complaining that they're leaning to the left, right? So that's left is complaining about the fact that they lean to the left, and right is complaining about the fact that they lean to the left. And the Times senior vice president for communications, Eileen M. Murphy, responded to Trump's tweet of canceling the meeting. "We were unaware that the meeting was canceled until we saw the president-elect's tweet this morning. We did not change the ground rules at all and made no attempt to. They tried to yesterday, asking for only a private meeting and no on-the-record segment, which we refused to agree to. In the end, we concluded with them that we would go back to the original plan of a small off-the-record session and a larger on-the-record session with reporters and columnists." So now the line that these people are putting out, by the way, this stuff is hilarious because they have really misbehaved. We'll get back to that in just a minute. But now their horror is that Trump is using Twitter to do an end run around the gatekeepers of the media, the sacred gatekeepers of the media. And this is very dangerous. So here's Katie Tour, who was called out at the meeting from MSNBC. Here she is complaining about how bad this is.
This is certainly an indication that Donald Trump is going to try and do things his own way. We know that he's already used Twitter to his advantage in that sense. They are trying to get out his message without the filter of the press. That way Donald Trump can say what he wants to say, sometimes spin the truth in his favor.
It's like we're getting a little bit of Trump TV. The prediction was if he lost, he was going to start his own network. He is, in a sense, starting his own line of communication, avoiding the media.
And there was a question of whether Trump TV was really for if he lost or for if he won, frankly. And his ability to get out what he thinks is his message. I mean, we see that with Breitbart pushing along Donald Trump's strategies, his platforms, pushing back against his critics. Right. They've got this Facebook TV thing that they've been doing. So this could be the start of them trying to really undercut and diminish the American free press, which is a problem.
I can't believe this. You may not remember this, but when Obama came to office, the fact that he used Twitter just showed how hip and cool and new he was. Obama's use of Twitter was just for all of us to marvel at. And this is while the New York Times was asking Obama questions like, what enchants you about being president of the United States? I mean, whenever they asked Obama a tough question, we would have to listen for 3 days while the press debated whether a reporter had been disrespectful. Remember this? Remember Major Garrett? The last one was Major Garrett after this crazy Iran deal to give Iran not to give Iran nuclear weapons, but it will result in Iran getting nuclear weapons. Major Garrett said, if you're making deals with Iran, why not get our hostages released? Here's Dana Bash. Remember this?
You've been a White House reporter. I've been a White House reporter. You know what it's like to stand up and ask the president a question. And you do want to be tough, but there's a fine line, especially maybe I'm old school, standing in the East Room, a fine line between asking a tough question and maybe crossing that line a little bit and being disrespectful. So I think that happened there.
Don't be disrespectful to the president. I mean, these guys, the big lie that they are telling, is that we abandoned our objectivity because Trump is so specially bad. That's their big lie. But just, go on the Daily Wire. Aaron Bandler, one of our better writers, one of our best writers, has a piece about the fact that Obama tweeted, going around the press, I guess, a danger to our free press. Obama tweeted that he's had a scandal-free administration. We haven't been plagued by the scandals. And Aaron just lists the scandals that were had that the press just didn't cover. Operation Fast and Furious, remember, where they were letting guns run into Mexico so that they ended up killing our border agents. Benghazi, of course, the IRS targeting conservative organizations, a huge scandal that really has only gotten full coverage in Kimberly Strassel's book, The Intimidation Game. The DOJ seizing Associated Press phone records as well as phone and email records from Fox News reporter James Rosen. The NSA conducting mass surveillance against American citizens without a warrant, which we only found out because of Edward Snowden. The Obama administration paid ransom to Iran hostages and lied to the American people about it. That was one of their biggest lies, but one of their most obvious lies as well. Hillary's email scandal, that was going on under Obama's nose, and he was writing to her under her private server, on her private server under a pseudonym, so he knew it was going on. The EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, poisoned a Colorado river as they were the EPA breached the Gold King mine in the state and mistakenly dug at the bottom as well as didn't test for pressure, both of which were mistakes that led to 3 million gallons of toxic mine waste. The EPA also broke federal law in promoting a regulation. The General Services Administration scandal, the Secret Service scandal, all of these things have been happening. If they had covered the Obama administration the way they've covered the first few days of the Trump transition, Obama would have been run out on a post. I mean, it would have been a constant scandal. And now, I love this exchange. Chris Cuomo does the Twitter thing too. Why is he picking on Hamilton and Saturday Night Live? Why is he doing this? I love Kellyanne Conway's answer.
Why take up SNL? No president does that. Why take it up? Why waste the time? Why distract?
But why do you care? In other words, who's to say that he can't do that, make a comment, spend 5 minutes on a tweet and making a comment, and still
having
be the
right to
president?
do it is absolute. Nobody's saying that. But he's as my president.
Then focus on what he did this week as your president-elect, which was unbelievable.
So
and I'm going to say unprecedented.
So he doesn't take any
Dozens of
responsibility
meetings
for his
with
own
world
tweets.
leaders.
It's on me for focusing.
I didn't say that. I didn't say he wasn't responsible, but you're assigning malice or assigning wrongdoing to him where it doesn't exist. And I think we all should have learned a lesson from the election that doesn't fly with the voters. And the
Except
viewers.
this isn't about his base as an insurgent and playing on what people are angry and frustrated about.
He won because we won Michigan and Wisconsin and
True.
Pennsylvania for the first time in decades.
But this is not like it was a blowout, right? It was, you won by 100,000 votes in 3 states and you lost a popular vote. He's now president of everybody.
Right.
So
he said he will be.
Why focus on divisions? That's all I'm saying.
Not focus on divisions. This network and other people will always be focused on his divisions. How about accepting election results, Chris, and letting him form a government?
It's like, what business? She said, basically said, what business is of yours if he wants to send out a tweet? It's absolutely right. And they never did this. They never did this with Obama. Hey, we've got some really interesting stuff about these alt-writers. It's pretty sickening stuff, actually, and you'll want to hear it. So you got to come over to the Daily Wire if you're on Facebook or on YouTube. And while you're there, you could subscribe and then send your questions about the meaning of your life to our mailbag for tomorrow.